The assembly hung like a giant metal crown above Jupiter, a shining station stretching 5 kilometers wide, locked in steady orbit. It was the heart of the solar accord. From here, all decisions about humanity's future were made. The station's long glass panels reflected the orange storm clouds below. It looked peaceful, but peace was a lie here. Commander Elias Vance stood in the observation deck, staring down at Jupiter. His hands were behind his back, his posture stiff, military as always. The years had marked his face with deep lines, his black hair now streaked with gray. His uniform carried the badge of Earth's Defense Corps, but it felt heavier than before. He had done this 5 times before. This was the 6th. The 6th time Earth had come to ask for a seat, a chance to have a voice in the council. A seat at the table where Mars, Titan, Europa, and the outer colonies held their power. But every time, Earth had walked away with nothing. Beside him stood Mara Leong, Earth's lead diplomat. She was younger, hopeful. She still believed in the system. Elias didn't. Not anymore. They'll vote soon, Mara whispered, breaking the silence. Elias didn't answer. He kept looking at the swirling clouds of Jupiter, as if the answer was hiding somewhere in that storm. A chime sounded. The council chamber doors slid open. Mara straightened her jacket. Elias took a deep breath. It was time. They walked together into the chamber. It was a grand circular room with a high glass ceiling. Around the curved table sat the council leaders from every major colony. The red-robed delegate from Mars. The tall, pale man from Europa. The armored representative of Titan. And at the head of the table, Chancellor Kyra Solari. Kyra stood as they entered. She was a sharp-featured woman with cold blue eyes. Her silver uniform fit her perfectly, every fold smooth, every movement precise. She didn't smile. She never did. Commander Vance. Envoy Leong. Welcome back to the assembly, Kyra said in a calm voice that held no warmth. Elias nodded. Chancellor Solari. Mara stepped forward. She began to speak. She repeated the same request Earth had made for years. She spoke of Earth's population, its contributions to human history, its right to be heard. Elias didn't listen to every word. He had heard it too many times before. He watched the council. Some avoided looking at them. Some listened with blank faces. Kyra watched with her hands folded, showing no emotion. When Mara finished, Kyra stood again. The council will vote, Kyra announced. A silence filled the chamber. One by one, the council cast their votes. Mars, no. Europa, no. Titan, no. Ganymede, no. Ceres, no. Callisto, no. Kyra looked at Elias. She didn't even wait before giving the final word. Earth's request is denied. The words cut through the air like a blade. Mara's face fell. She tried to protest, but Kyra raised her hand to silence her. We appreciate Earth's efforts, but the council agrees. Earth is not ready. This decision is final. Elias clenched his jaw. His fists tightened at his sides. He had expected it, but hearing it again still burned. Without another word, he turned and left the chamber. Mara followed, her face pale with shock. They walked back through the station's cold metal corridors. Behind them, the council moved on to the next item on their agenda, as if Earth didn't matter. By the time Elias and Mara returned to their quarters, the news had already spread. Earth's media was broadcasting the result. Across the planet, people were already in the streets. Angry, afraid. Some were breaking windows. Some were shouting in the streets. Mara collapsed onto a chair, holding her head in her hands. They'll turn on each other again, she whispered. We've failed them. Elias stood by the window, staring at the stars. His mind was already racing. This was the last time he would stand here and beg. He couldn't watch Earth suffer again. His wrist communicator blinked. A secure message from Earth Command. One sentence. One final order. No more asking. Take the table. Elias lowered his hand. He turned to Mara. Get the team ready, he said, his voice cold and steady. We're done playing their game. Mara looked up, confused. What are you talking about? Elias didn't explain. He walked toward the door. He had work to do. Earth wasn't asking anymore. Elias Vance stood alone in the transport bay. The shuttle back to Earth hummed as it powered up. The crew loaded the last of the equipment. Mara Leong waited nearby, watching him carefully. She had asked him 3 times what he meant when he said, "Get the team ready." He hadn't answered. Not yet. The doors closed. The shuttle detached from the assembly and began its slow journey back toward Earth. Elias kept staring out the small window. Jupiter grew smaller behind them. His mind was already far ahead. The journey took 2 days. In that time, Elias barely spoke to anyone. He studied data reports, military files, and council records. He replayed every vote, every speech, every lie. When they landed in New Berlin, the new capital of Earth, the city was in chaos. Protesters filled the streets. Fires burned in distant districts. News screens showed images of angry crowds. Sixth rejection. Earth shut out again. Mara followed Elias through the security gates. Earth's Defense Command was hidden deep under the city. When they entered the war room, General Ruth Halden stood waiting. She was an older woman, taller than Elias, with a face that showed she had seen more wars than she cared to count. Her arms were crossed, her eyes hard. "You got the message," Elias said flatly. Halden nodded. "We're ready." Mara stepped forward. "Ready for what?" "We still have channels. We can still negotiate." Elias turned to face her. For the first time, his voice dropped lower, heavier. "There are no channels left, Mara. We're not asking anymore. We're taking control." Mara shook her head. "We can't just start a war." Elias stepped closer. "It's already started. They've been bleeding us dry for years. They shut us out. They left us to die. We can't survive another decade like this." Mara opened her mouth to argue again, but Halden raised a hand. "You're either with us or you're not," Halden said. Mara stood frozen. Finally, she lowered her head and whispered, "What's the plan?" Elias nodded to Halden. She turned to the screen on the far wall. It lit up with maps, data streams, and images of the assembly station. "We've been watching the Accord for months," Halden explained. "They control the vote, the trade, the energy grid, but they rely on one system to keep it all running, PulseNet. PulseNet, a massive network of data lines, satellites, and security systems. It linked all the colonies. It ran through the assembly like blood in a heart. "We can't blow it up," Halden said. "That would start open war. But we can control it." Quietly, Elias stepped forward. "We've already found backdoors in their systems. Weak points. With the right team, we could take over without firing a single shot." Mara frowned. "Who's the team?" Halden pressed a button. The wall screen shifted again. Faces appeared. Names. Files. Jace Ramirez, cybernetics engineer. Former Accord systems analyst. Talia Wren, hacker. Expert in deep code infiltration. Levi Chun, former security chief of Titan. Tactical operations. Dr. Emil Soros, energy systems specialist. Knows PulseNet better than anyone. "These people don't work for us anymore," Mara whispered. "Most of them left Earth years ago." Elias nodded. "But they're still loyal. They know what's at stake." Over the next few days, the team was gathered in secret. Jace was found working on black market tech in a floating city over the Pacific. Talia was tracked down in the slums of Luna, living off stolen credits. Levi was hiding in the mountains of Patagonia. Dr. Soros had disappeared, but they found him deep inside a collapsed energy plant, trying to fix what the Accord had left behind. Each of them had their reasons for joining. Some for loyalty, some for revenge, some because they knew Earth had no future without action. In the war room, they began their planning. Long nights turned into days. Maps were drawn. Access points were found. Codes were tested. The first target was Titan's data relay. If they could hijack the signal, they could plant a false command that would let them slip into the core of PulseNet. Jace and Talia led the first operation. They used stolen satellites to mask their signal. It took hours of silent work, sweat dripping from their faces as they typed line after line of code. Then, access granted. Elias watched as the data stream opened before them. The first door was unlocked. Over the next week, more doors fell. Europa's relay, Ganymede's security layer, Ceres' tracking grid. One by one, they broke through deeper into the heart of the Accord system. But they knew it couldn't last. Kyra Solari wasn't blind. She started noticing small glitches, delayed commands, missing data packets. She sent private warnings to Earth, demanding answers. Publicly, she kept quiet. She didn't want panic to spread through the colonies. But Elias knew it was only a matter of time before she acted. Late one night, Elias stood alone in the war room. The lights were dim. The city above rumbled with distant protests. He pressed his hand against the glass wall, staring out into the dark. His wrist communicator blinked. A direct message. From Kyra Solari. Elias answered. Her face appeared on the screen, calm and cold as always. You've gone too far, she said. We know it's you. Elias didn't deny it. He leaned closer to the screen. You forced us to do this, he replied. You left us no choice. Kyra's lips tightened. Earth will be cut off. No trade. No energy. No supplies. I'm giving you one last chance to stop. Elias stared at her for a long moment. Then he leaned back and spoke with a voice like stone. Next time, we don't knock. He ended the call. The quiet war had begun. The sun was just beginning to rise over New Berlin when the first power grid failure hit. It started in the northern districts, blackouts, failed communications, transport lines shutting down without warning. Within minutes, the chaos spread across half the city. People flooded into the streets again. Some were scared. Others were angry. Everyone was desperate. Elias Vance stood on the upper balcony of Earth Defense Command, looking down at the dark city. His team worked nonstop inside the war room, but this failure wasn't part of the plan. This was something else. Talia Wren came rushing up the stairs behind him. She was holding a small tablet, her face pale. They hit us back, she said, catching her breath. Kyra, she's shutting us out already. Elias took the tablet. The data on the screen showed the problem clearly. PulseNet had cut Earth's energy access. The Accord was pulling the plug on their systems. Power, food shipments, medical supplies. Levi Chun, standing nearby, spoke up. If they keep this up, Earth will collapse in weeks. Elias clenched his jaw. We move faster. Inside the war room, the team gathered around the center table. Halden stood at the front, pointing to the rotating hologram of the assembly station. Kyra's forcing our hand, she said. We have no more time. We hit the assembly directly. Mara sat in the corner, watching them all. She hadn't spoken much since the last vote. But now she stood up, slamming her hand on the table. You're pushing Earth to the edge, she shouted. Do you even know what you're doing? Elias turned to her, his voice calm but firm. We've been on the edge for decades, Mara. We're still standing because we have no choice. She shook her head. If you push this further, there's no turning back. Elias nodded. I know. The team spent the next 2 days planning. The next move was risky. Too risky, some argued. But they had no choice. Elias had one goal. Gain control of the assembly's internal systems before Kyra could completely lock Earth out. The plan was clear. Step 1. Send a false emergency signal to the assembly. Force a crisis meeting. Step 2. Infiltrate the assembly's internal security using the planted codes from their earlier hacks. Step 3. Take control of the command systems without alerting the entire council. Elias assigned Jace and Talia to prepare the false signal. Levi and Dr. Soros would oversee the security breach. Mara would handle diplomatic channels, keeping up the appearance that Earth was still trying to negotiate. That night, as the team worked through the dark hours, Elias stood once again in the observation room. His communicator buzzed. A private channel request. Kyra Solari. He accepted the call. Her face filled the screen. For once, her perfect posture seemed tighter. Her jaw was locked. Her patience was wearing thin. Commander Vance, she said quietly, I hope you're ready to lose everything. Elias didn't flinch. We already lost everything when you locked us out. Kyra leaned forward, her voice dropping lower. I warned you. I tried to keep this quiet. You had a chance to step down. Elias narrowed his eyes. And let Earth die quietly? You know me better than that. Kyra's lips twitched into something almost like a smile. But there was no humor in it. You don't have the power to stop us. You're desperate. And soon, you'll be cut off from everything. Elias leaned closer. You're wrong. You think we're asking for a seat again. We're not. We're done asking. We're coming to take the whole table. Kyra's expression hardened. Then be ready, Vance. Because the table you're reaching for is about to break apart. The screen went black. Elias walked back to the war room. His team was waiting. Jace looked up from his console. "We're ready," Jace said. Elias looked around the room, meeting every pair of eyes. "This is it," he said. "Once we do this, there's no going back." Mara stood at the far wall. She crossed her arms, silent, but she didn't leave. "Not this time." Elias nodded. "Send the signal." Talia's fingers moved fast across the console. The false emergency alert shot through the network, heading straight for the assembly. The countdown had begun. The emergency signal reached the assembly within hours. It was coded to look like a systems failure, one that could spread through PulseNet and crash the entire Accord network. It worked. The council called for an emergency meeting on the station, the same station where Earth had been denied 6 times before. Inside Earth's war room, Elias stood before his team. The hologram of the station floated above the table. This was their moment, but the risk was higher than ever. Elias pointed to the model, explaining the entry points. "There are 3 internal systems we need to take over," he began. "Communications, security, and command access." Jace Ramirez spoke up. "We already have partial control of the outer data relays, but we need physical access to the command core. No remote hacks this time." Levi Chun crossed his arms. "The assembly will be on high alert. We can't just walk in." Talia Wren leaned forward. "What about the old maintenance shafts? The ones from the original construction? They never removed them." Dr. Soros nodded. "It's possible, but once we're inside, we'll have minutes before they trace us." Elias let them speak. He listened to every word. Then he gave the final order. "We're going in." Mara Leong stood in the corner, her face pale. She stepped forward, speaking softly but firmly. "There's still time to stop this," she said. "You could ask for another meeting. One more vote." Elias turned to face her. He shook his head. "There's no more voting, Mara. You've seen the news. You've seen the streets. Earth doesn't have time for another failure." She looked down, her voice shaking. "This isn't what I signed up for." Elias took a step closer. His voice softened for the first time in days. "You still have a choice. You can walk away. But we have to do this." Mara didn't answer. She stayed where she was. The team prepared in silence. Jace and Talia checked the infiltration tools, signal jammers, encryption breakers, and data injectors. Levi prepared the security overrides. Soros reviewed the station's energy systems. Elias stood alone for a moment, staring at a small photo on the wall. It was old, a picture of Earth's first colony ship, the Soul's Hope. He remembered the stories, how Earth had once led humanity to the stars. Now it was fighting just to survive. He turned back to the team. "Gear up. We leave in 1 hour." The transport ship was small and unmarked. It carried no Earth flags, no symbols, just a cold, gray hull designed to blend in. Elias, Levi, Jace, and Talia boarded first. Soros stayed behind to manage the power links from Earth. Mara stood at the edge of the launch pad, watching them. She still looked unsure. Elias walked over to her. "If we don't come back," he started. Mara shook her head, cutting him off. "Don't say it. Just come back." Elias nodded once. No more words. The hatch closed. The engines roared to life. The ship lifted into the dark sky, heading for the assembly one last time. The ride was silent. No one spoke. They knew what waited for them. As they approached the station, the crew stayed low, flying along the station's blind side. Talia worked fast, sending out false signals to mask their presence. Levi checked the station's patrol patterns. He pointed to a small maintenance shaft on the side of the structure. "There," he whispered. "That's our way in." The ship docked quietly. The team moved fast, slipping through the shaft and into the station's lower levels. The assembly was busy preparing for the emergency meeting. No one noticed the shadows moving through the maintenance corridors. Elias led the way. They reached the command core entrance. 2 guards stood watch. Levi moved quickly, disabling them without a sound. Jace and Talia rushed to the access panel. Jace plugged in his device. Talia started running the bypass codes. The door clicked open. They slipped inside. The command core was the brain of the assembly. Rows of terminals, glowing data streams, control panels linked to every colony. Elias nodded to Talia. She went to work, connecting their system to the control hub. Jace muttered, "We're in starting data override now." The system began to shift under their control, one layer at a time. But time was running out. Alarms started flashing on the station's upper levels. Security had noticed the breach. Levi checked the outer cameras. They're coming. Elias stepped to the center console. He placed his hand on the command terminal. His voice was steady. Broadcast to all channels. All colonies. Now, Talia hit the final command. The station's entire network shifted. Every screen, every broadcast channel, every colony across the system. Elias cleared his throat. This is Commander Elias Vance of Earth. The Accord has denied us for the last time. They've shut us out, broken their promises, and left billions to suffer. He leaned closer to the camera. We're done asking. We're done waiting. From this moment, Earth takes control. The assembly is ours. The team locked the station's systems. No one could override them now. Kyra Solari's voice echoed through the station's internal speakers, filled with rage. Vance, stand down or you'll destroy everything. Elias didn't flinch. Let's see who blinks first, he whispered. The station shook with rising tension. The takeover had begun. Sirens echoed through the assembly's long metal corridors. Red lights flashed along the walls, warning of a security breach. Every guard on the station was moving toward the command core. Commander Elias Vance stood with his team inside that very core, watching the station's systems shift under their control. For a moment, it felt like they had already won, but they knew better. The hardest part was still ahead. Levi Chan stood near the door, checking the hallway cameras on his wrist display. 2 squads coming in fast, he said, fully armed. Elias nodded. Hold the door. No one gets in. Jace Ramirez and Talia Wren kept working on the terminals. They had taken control of the assembly's communications and security feeds. But the station's full command authority was still locked behind one last firewall. Talia's fingers moved quickly over her keypad. She bit her lip in frustration. This last layer is heavy, she said. Military grade. It's going to take time. Elias walked over to her. His voice was steady but firm. You have 5 minutes. In the corridor, the first wave of guard arrived. They wore black armor and carried energy rifles. Levi ducked behind a steel crate, waiting for the right moment. When the door started to open, he fired a pulse grenade down the hallway. It exploded in a flash of white light. The guards shouted, blinded for a few seconds. Levi moved fast, taking them down one by one. More footsteps echoed down the hall. Backup was already coming. Levi cursed under his breath. He turned back toward the team. They just keep coming, he warned. Back at the console, Talia's face lit up. I've cracked it, she shouted. The last firewall fell. The core systems were now fully open. Jace ran the final command. Across the station, every screen switched to show Elias's face again. Elias didn't waste time. He stepped up and spoke into the broadcast channel. His voice went out to every colony, every city, every ship connected to the Accord. This is Commander Elias Vance. You've seen the truth. You've watched Earth be denied again and again. We're no longer waiting for a seat. We now hold the entire table. He paused, letting the words sink in. We control the assembly. We control PulseNet. From this moment forward, Earth stands equal with every colony, or the Accord falls with us. Kyra Solari was watching from the council chamber. She stood slowly, her face pale with rage. She turned to the remaining council members. Seal the core. Take them alive if you can. Kill them if you must. Guards swarmed the corridors. Levi fought to hold the line, but there were too many. We're not going to hold this position much longer, Levi shouted. Jace looked at Elias. We've got control. We can lock the whole station down right now. Elias nodded. Do it. Jace hit the lockout command. All doors on the station slammed shut. Guards were trapped in sealed corridors. Elevators froze. Weapons systems went offline. In the council chamber, Kyra pounded her fist on the table. The station's power shifted entirely to Earth's control. Elias turned to Talia. Give me a direct line to Kyra, he ordered. The screen flickered. Kyra's face appeared. She leaned forward, speaking in a cold, sharp voice. You don't know what you've started, Vance. Elias stood tall, facing her through the screen. Oh, I know exactly what I've started. And you can either recognize Earth's place right now, or watch the Accord fall apart in front of you. Kyra's jaw tightened. She looked around the locked council chamber, knowing she had lost control. The other council members started to back away from her. Whispers of fear and betrayal filled the room. Finally, one counselor stood up. "A move to remove Chancellor Kyra Solari from leadership," the counselor announced. Kyra spun around in shock. "What are you doing?" she demanded. The council ignored her. One by one, they stood and agreed to remove her from power. Kyra's guards grabbed her by the arms. She struggled, shouting in rage. "You're making a mistake. This won't hold. Earth doesn't belong here." Elias watched in silence as she was dragged out of the chamber. Inside the command core, Jace let out a long breath. Talia leaned back in her chair, exhausted. Levi finally lowered his weapon. Elias stood in the middle of the room, staring at the screen. He had done it. Earth had taken control of the assembly without firing a single deadly shot, but didn't feel like victory. Back on Earth, news of the takeover spread like wildfire. People poured into the streets again, but this time they were cheering. The headlines flashed on every screen. Earth seizes the assembly. The Accord overthrown. Elias Vance declares new order. The crowds waved Earth's flag, shouting his name. But Elias didn't celebrate. He knew this was just the beginning. The Accord had fallen, but the real battle was just starting. The assembly lay silent. No alarms. No shouting. The guards stood frozen behind locked doors. The council chamber was empty now. The great table where humanity's leaders once gathered was quiet and cold. Elias Vance stood in the center of the command core. The council had fallen. The station was his. Yet the weight of what he had done pressed on his shoulders like iron. Jace Ramirez broke the silence. "We have full control, Commander. The system is locked to us. No one outside could take it back without shutting down PulseNet completely." Talia Wren, leaning back in her chair, added, "The colonies are already calling in. Everyone wants to know what happens next." Levi Chun walked over to Elias. He spoke quietly, serious as ever. "We've won, sir, but this is a big system. They'll come for it." Elias nodded. He knew Levi was right. This wasn't over. He gave the order to open all communication channels. Across the solar system, Mars, Titan, Europa, Ganymede, Ceres, Callisto, screens lit up. Leaders, citizens, and soldiers waited in silence to hear what Earth would say. Elias stepped in front of the cameras. He didn't wear medals. He didn't stand like a politician. He stood like a man who had carried too much for too long. "This is Commander Elias Vance," he began, his voice steady. "For decades, Earth has stood in your shadow. We asked for a seat at the table, and you turned us away. 6 times you called us unworthy. 6 times you watched our people suffer while you built your cities and ruled the system." He paused, letting the words sink in. "No more." He leaned forward, his voice sharper now. "Earth holds the assembly. We control PulseNet. We control the routes, the systems, the energy. We are done asking. We have taken our place." The feeds showed images of people across the colonies, watching, listening, silent. Elias continued, "We do not seek war. We do not seek revenge. But we will not be locked out again. From this day forward, Earth stands as an equal. And if you refuse to accept that, then the Accord ends here. On Mars, Titan, in Europa, council chambers exploded in debate. Some wanted to strike back. Others warned it was too late. Panic spread through the leadership. No one knew what to do. Earth had flipped the board. Meanwhile, on Earth, cities erupted in celebration. News stations ran Elias's speech on a loop. People danced in the streets, waving Earth's flag. They cheered for their new leader, the man who had done what no one else could. But inside Earth Defense Command, General Ruth Halden stood with Mara Leong, watching the celebration on the big screen. Mara shook her head. "They think this is over," she whispered. Halden sighed. "It's never over." Back on the assembly, the team held the station. But the strain was starting to show. Sleep was rare. Supplies were tight. The pressure was rising. Elias stood with his team one last time in the war room. Levi spoke first. "What's the next move, sir?" Elias looked around at each of them. Jace, Talia, Levi, even Mara, who had finally come to stand by his side again. "There is no next move," Elias said quietly. We hold the table. We hold the system. Now we hold the line. Jace frowned. You really think they'll just let us keep it? Elias didn't answer right away. He knew they wouldn't. But he also knew there was no turning back. He turned to the window, looking out at the stars. Let them come, he whispered to himself. Later that night, Elias stood alone in the council chamber. The great table stood empty before him. He ran his fingers across its smooth surface. He remembered every rejection, every speech, every lie. He closed his eyes. We asked for a seat. They denied us. So we took the whole table. But as he stood there, he knew the truth. Power never stayed in one place for long. Someone else would come for this table. Maybe tomorrow, maybe years from now. But they would come, and Earth would have to fight again. Elias left the chamber, knowing the world had changed forever. The story of the Accord was over. A new story had begun. The celebration on Earth would continue. But the real work was only starting. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the next move was already being planned. 1 week had passed. The assembly station was quiet again. The shouting had stopped. The guards had been released from their sealed halls. The council chambers stood empty, still locked by Earth's security codes. Elias Vance stood at the large window in the command core, staring down at the planet below. Earth hung in the distance, blue and alive. He had spent most of his life trying to protect it. Now, for the first time, it had power. Real power. But the silence in the station felt heavier than any victory. The colonies had gone quiet after the broadcast. Mars had pulled back its patrol ships. Titan had sealed its gates. Europa had shut down its trading networks. Everyone was waiting. No one trusted anyone. The Solar Accord had fallen apart faster than anyone expected. Without the assembly to lead them, the colonies had turned on each other. They blamed Earth. Some blamed their own leaders. Trade stopped. Shipments froze. The system was broken. Elias had won the fight for control, but the cost was growing by the day. Mara Leong entered the command core, holding a report. She didn't speak right away. She stood beside Elias, looking out at Earth. Finally, she spoke quietly. New Berlin has declared today a global holiday, she said. They're calling it Earth Independence Day. Elias gave a small nod, but didn't look away from the window. Mara lowered the report. The people think we've saved them. They're celebrating in every city. The streets are full. Music, fireworks, flags everywhere. Elias sighed. Let them celebrate. They need it. Mara glanced at him, sensing the weight in his voice. They're already asking what's next, she whispered. They think you're going to lead them into the future. Elias finally turned to face her. His voice was heavy. I took the table, Mara, but there's no peace in holding it. In the war room, Jace Ramirez and Talia Wren sat at the main console, monitoring colony communications. Levi Chun paced nearby, his face tense. Levi stopped and spoke up. The colonies aren't going to stay silent. We've won the assembly, but we haven't won them. Jace nodded. We're holding a broken system together with duct tape and fear. It won't last. Talia looked up. So what do we do? Do we get back? Walk away. Elias entered the room, hearing the question. He looked around at all of them. His team. The people who had risked everything. No, he said firmly. We don't give it back, but we don't rule it by force either. Levi frowned. Then how? Elias walked to the center of the room. He rested his hands on the edge of the table. We rebuild it, he said. We invite the colonies. We open every seat to every world. No more locked doors. No more secret votes. The team exchanged glances. Jace leaned forward. You think they'll trust us now? Elias looked back at the screen, showing Earth celebration. They don't have to trust us, he said. They just have to sit down and talk. Later that night, a shuttle returned Elias to Earth. The landing pad was crowded with cheering crowds. Flags waved in the air. People shouted his name. Fireworks lit up the sky. But Elias didn't wave back. He walked past them all, slipping into a waiting transport. He didn't need their cheers. He returned to his small apartment in New Berlin, away from the military bases and political buildings. It was quiet there. No cameras. No crowds. He stood on his balcony, looking out at the city lights. He had done what no one else dared to do. He had taken the table. He had forced the colonies to listen. But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. Someone else would rise one day. Someone with their own plan to take the table again. Maybe they would do it for power. Maybe for revenge. Maybe for peace. But they would come. And when they did, the fight would start all over again. Elias stood in the dark, watching the stars. He had carried Earth this far. The rest was up to the next generation. The celebration behind him grew louder, but he didn't turn around. He simply whispered to himself. We asked for a seat. They denied us. So he took the whole table. But no one holds power forever. He closed his eyes, letting out a long breath.